So like I said, I need to get this up to minute 12, it looks like. And when it comes to animals on islands, like we had discussed yesterday, the elephants are growing smaller. But do we remember possibly an instance of an animal that's growing larger? Oops. I don't know if they discussed them, but they're certainly tied into what Darwin had studied. Not just finches. What else did Darwin study?
Whales.
Well, he didn't study whales, though. On the, say that again?
Bugs.
Nope, not bugs. He did study finches. What else might he have been known for besides his finches? The iguanas was one, and tortoises. Okay, so lizards and turtles, you can say. Okay.
24,000 pounds. What if oxygen levels... Facing the challenges of their changing environments, creatures have shrunk and exploded in size over time like the images in a funhouse mirror. But there is at least one life form that has kept the same size for 3.8 billion years. Bacteria started small and has stayed that way ever since.
And there's a tendency to think that bigger is better, but really being small is a pretty good trick.
For bacteria, it's been a nearly unrivaled story of evolutionary success.
It's been said that if humans disappeared from the Earth, 99.9% of species wouldn't even notice that anything had happened. But if the bacteria disappeared from the Earth, humans would be dead in a matter of hours.
But it seems that getting bigger is a stronger trend. About 1.8 billion years ago, some single-celled creatures either split on their own or joined with others to form the first multicellular organisms. They were the giants of their day, and they started a trend toward larger forms that would continue. Given a favorable set of circumstances, life tends to size up.
One reason that animals might get bigger through evolutionary time, if you have animals within a species competing with one another, and the big ones are always winning and the small ones are always losing, the big ones have more babies and the small ones have fewer babies, and therefore over time you would see a progression from smaller animals to bigger animals, which is exactly what we see for a lot of different groups.
The ocean offers improved chances for some animals to grow bigger because the buoyancy of water takes away some of the strain of gravity. And one aquatic life form has trended up over millions of years to a size so unimaginable that even scientists have a hard time understanding how they survive. The blue whale, the largest creature that has ever lived. Whales weren't always big, and in fact, their ancestors didn't even live in the ocean. Whales started out on land.
The ancestors of whales were sort of dog-like creatures that are most closely related to today's hippos, and they moved back into the water probably to feed on fish.
Millions of years of adaptation later, modern whales emerged, now fully aquatic. Their size, about the same as today's dolphins, until they suddenly hit a mysterious growth spurt.
About 5 or 7 million years ago, whales became huge. They became supersized. We don't really know why that happened. It's very much a mystery.
The mystery of why the whales got big is just one of the many that has baffled the scientific community. No one has ever understood how these massive beasts, 90% as heavy as the Statue of Liberty and nearly as tall, could survive on a diet consisting mainly of one of the smallest foods in the ocean.
Some of the larger species of whale tend to specialize on what we call krill, which are small crustaceans that occur all throughout the water column.
Jeremy Goldbogen and Nick Pyenson, biologists working at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, believe they are on to the whale's secrets. How they feed and how they grew. They start with what they know for sure. Whales gotta eat.
Large body size means that you have enormous resource requirements.
It's just a basic law of physics. You have such a large body mass, you have to eat a lot of food just to sustain that body mass.
The blue whale needs a ton of food a day to survive. It feeds here on the surface, opening wide to envelop as much as 18,000 gallons of water at once. That's about 30 hot tubs worth. The whale then expels the water back to the sea, while keeping the krill in its mouth. It traps the krill with a unique curtain wall of tough plates dangling from the roof of its mouth, called baleen.
Over evolutionary time, they've lost their teeth, and baleen simply hangs down. It's a simple sieve mechanism that will filter out prey from water.
But even with baleen, the whale only captures about 20 pounds of krill at the surface. That means 100 meals a day, a seemingly impossible task.
It makes you wonder whether or not the baleen whales can meet their daily energetic requirements.
Clearly, the whales could not be so big unless they ate enough. Could their size be related to the way they got their food? A huge break in the case came by accident. In 2003, Goldbogen worked on a joint expedition with Scripps Oceanographic and Cascadian Research that attached recording devices to whales with suction cups to track singing behavior.
The tags measure such things as how fast they go, how deep they go, when they're swimming.
But the whales didn't sing and the data seemed useless until Goldbogen realized that the whales were acting strangely, tremendously active. A detailed analysis revealed that the whales were feeding 600 feet down below the surface. Could this secret dining spot hold the key to the whale's success?
This is the first time we've been able to see what a whale is doing underwater, at least a whale this big.
Using the data, the team constructed the first detailed explanation of the whale's deep dive feeding. First, the whale turns head down and powerfully beats its tail a few times to gain momentum. After the first 40 feet of descent, the whale's lungs collapse from increased water pressure, and it drops like a lead weight. Sighting a dense mass of krill, it suddenly opens its mouth, nearly 90 degrees wide. The whale quickly shuts its mouth, squeezes out the water over 30 seconds, and traps the krill behind the baleen filter.
An adult fin whale can execute a lunge in about 6 seconds. It takes 3 seconds to lower the jaws and 3 seconds to close the jaws.
The jaw snap is one half of the technique. The second is the huge cavity that opens up beneath the lower jaw.
So this would be similar to what we have right here under our chin. So their tissue runs from the chin all the way to the belly button.
The research shows that each deep dive averages 4 lunges and lasts about 7 minutes before the whales have to come up for air. In the Southern Ocean alone, krill constitutes 500 million tons of biomass, twice that of humans. And krill appear in oceans all over the world. The This plentiful food supply for whales turns out to be a key factor in their evolution as giants of the sea. With dense packs of krill available 600 feet down, even at only 20 pounds a bite, the whales can get enough food in just 4 hours a day, leaving plenty of time for singing. The team thinks that the development of baleen and lunge feeding just might finally account for the whale's mysterious and rapid evolution to supersize 5 to 7 million years ago. One reason that whales can grow so large is that the buoyancy of water helps counteract the effects of gravity. But sauropods, the largest creatures ever to live on land, had no such advantages, yet they managed to grow nearly as big. How did they do it?
Sauropods had necks that were completely out of bounds with human experience.
My family and I witnessed three red lights north in the sky.
This thing just floated across the sky.
Just have a couple things that we continue to discuss because this is also part of your curriculum, and that is we've already established that strange things happen to animals when they move to islands. So what is an example of an animal that gets larger on islands that we've talked about? Okay, I suppose you could say lizards, but the specific example would be the Komodo dragon. That would be true. What else? Okay, and turtles or tortoises, and again, that was part of Darwin's studies, was tortoises and those types of lizards. So if they're getting bigger, an example, or why is it that those animals can get larger on islands? Maybe there could be bigger prey, but I don't think that's what the author is getting at. Yeah, because they're going to say someone in the front said that. So if there's nothing to prey upon them, well then those animals are going to certainly get larger. So then you might say, well, what about these elephants? Why are they not getting larger? Because they didn't have any natural predators, correct? Yeah. But they couldn't grow larger. And we've already established that. Why could they not grow larger? Because their food source was higher in the elevation, and the larger you were, you could not get that type of a food source. Okay. So in many groups of animals, why is being larger going to be an advantage when it comes to that of having infants, for instance? The example they gave was a lion, and they showed that in the video, that larger animals within a species tend to have more babies, is what they talked about. So then when that happens, what takes place with smaller individuals? They don't have as many, and then what happens to that within a population? You're exactly right. Say that again. They're going to start to shrink, and they might even die off. Okay, that's correct. Okay. So then, how can these whales grow to be such big size? Because they're so large, that's got to be hard on a skeleton. And that's what the author was talking about. That's hard on a skeleton. But the buoyancy, or the water that pushes up on them, that takes the weight off of their bones. But now the last thing we're going to say is, how is it possible for those whales to dive to such great depths? I didn't think anyone was going to catch that. That's right. So it's not their tail flapping back and forth like this to propel them down. I mean, yes, that's going to help, but if those lungs, if they stay inflated, it's about like trying to push a balloon down further and further in depth. So those lungs have to collapse within that animal, or else they can't get down to, they say, 1,200 meters, something like that. It would be impossible for an animal to do that should those lungs stay inflated. Okay, so we'll pick up with this tomorrow, and and also, if we get a chance, we'll move on to sight as well. And tomorrow's Friday, so we'll catch up to you next time.